Hello, and thanks for watching or listening to episode 28 of VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on iTunes and Spotify, a nice review would be nice so those media monsters can push Bell to Bell. I'm Steve Lillis. With me, as always, my co-host, John Evans. You okay, John?
Yeah, very good, Steve. And we've got someone who's used to football. He's taking on the hat-trick ball, isn't he, today?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, there he is, our special guest, third time on. This is a journalist who pulls no punches, one of the very best in the business, very knowledgeable man indeed. The Daily Star's Chris McKenna. He must be good because he's one of the few journalists who Bunsey even praises to me. So there you go. That tells you all you need to know, John, about Chris.
I'm in big company there, haven't I? Bloody hell, and I've got a big billing to live up to yet again. But maybe third time lucky this time I will.
If Big Daddy Grumpy Bunsey bigs you up, mate, you're okay by most people. Fellas, you both know how it works. Well, John, you're on every week. It's for those who are bell-to-bell virgins. We have 6 rounds, 3 minutes each round. And if you're still talking at the end of the 3 minutes, just show our new listeners, John, what happens. John, you're going to start us off as always this week.
Yeah, now, I'm a big Derek Chisora fan. I like that type of heavyweight. Heavyweight is the only division which provides genuine lunatics, and I'm a big Derek Chisora fan. But it's 9 years since he lost to Vitaly Klitschko. It's 6 years since he walked through that rematch with Fury when he looked terrible. It's 3 and a bit years since he resurrected his career with Carlos Takam. And somehow Del Boy is headlining pay-per-views. Now, it wouldn't surprise me this week if he beats Joseph Park. If you look at Parker against Leopai, I thought he looked awful. And I'd maybe have Chisora the favourite this weekend. But 2 questions just pop in my mind. What's the end game for Derek? He can't beat Fury. He's not going to get another shot. Joshua's tied up. Maybe in 18 months down the line, if Del Boy's still around, it's an attractive first defence if Joshua can beat Fury. But is Del Boy still going to be around at that point? So what's the end game for Derek? And should we be paying for the privilege of watching him do it? Now, as much as I like Derek, I think that's a definite no. We shouldn't be paying to top up Derek's pension pot in these fringe world title level fights. So what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll just be brief for once. I don't think it's a pay-per-view fight. I think there's nothing wrong with a fight. 2 guys at are in the going into the last station of their career. I think going on their last fights, you think Del Boy wins. He looked all okay against Usyk. The other fella, Parker, looked awful against Farr. The end game for Del Boy is counting his bank balance. He's not going to get a world title fight unless the belts become fragmented. He's not going to be about in 18 months' time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the end. I don't think there is an end game in a way. I think this is just get as much money as possible before he does retire. I mean, I've lost count of the amount of times I've asked Chisora before a fight, if you lose this, is that it? And every time he just says, no, retirement's for pussies. I won't be retiring no matter what happens. So this week I'll probably ask him again and he'll probably tell me the same answer. So as like I could not have ever guessed that night when he got absolutely just walked over by Fury in that rematch that in 5-6 years we would still be watching Derek Chisora fight, never mind him headlining back-to-back pay-per-views. So it is a surprise. It's a fun fight. It's not pay-per-views, definitely not on its own. But it's a fun heavyweight fight. It's going to be interesting to see what Chisora's got left, but also if Andy Lee can make any changes to kind of reignite Joseph Parker, because he has got a bit of talent, but he has looked very stale since those back-to-back defeats against Joshua and Dillian White. So that's going to be the kind of intriguing factor of it. But when's the end game? Who knows with Derek?
Yeah. And just before I ring the bell, I best say sorry to those anal ones listening. I meant Junior Farr instead of Alex Leopai. All those Australians and New Zealanders all the same.
Auckland is raging. Right, time to cash in. I tell you who I want to talk about. a boxer who really put a smile on my face at the weekend. Felix Cash. I always thought he was an okay, decent middleweight, but I thought he was brilliant at the weekend against Denzel Bentley. You give Denzel Bentley a pass because Felix Cash was so good. And I'm thinking of recent British title wins when people could have made a big cases for either men, and he was as impressive as any of these winners. Callum Johnson against Frank Buglioni after 18 months out. Walked through Buglioni. Buglioni had beaten Richards and Hosey Burton in his previous fights. Callum Smith, Rocky Fielding. Fielding was 21-0, blown away in a minute. Liam Williams, so dominant against Mark Heffron. Fantastic that night. Heffron unbeaten. Just walked through him. He was every bit as impressive as those guys, in my opinion, Saturday night, who got lavish such praise. You know, we're talking their British title, you know, winning British title fights in what was seen as 50-50 fights in recent times. He was absolutely brilliant, I thought. He didn't waste a shot. He had a look on, I mean, at the press conference last Wednesday, he had that shine to his skin. And I just thought everything he did was brilliant. He looks to me, he'll walk through the Italian Matteo Signani for sure. And do you know what? I fancy him to go on at world level, and I would give him a chance against Chris Eubank Jr. even.
I think he beats Chris Eubank Jr. now. I mean, I wouldn't put that past him. I think he's got all that amateur pedigree behind him. He's got, so people kind of forget about that and they just look at the pro record. But he won tournaments all over the world as an amateur. He knows what it takes to win big fights. And yeah, okay, perfect. Go for that European title. Another great learning fight. He'll win it. As you said, Steve. I think quite comfortably. I haven't seen a lot of the Italian, but judging by his record, it doesn't look like he'd put up much to cash. But you know what, as well, it's great to see somebody proud to go and win the British, the Commonwealth, and now also want to win the European. Doing it the old school way. I know Lawrence Okoli did it quite recently, won the Commonwealth, the British, the European, and then won the world title. And that's the great ground. And you learn so much more going through those levels rather than fighting for intercontinental belts against Eastern Europeans that nobody ever heard of.
Yeah, the thing that stood out from watching Cash against Bentley was, I know Denzel grew up, first put gloves on the block on his estate, didn't he? But his brother bought off a market. But everything Felix did was just tighter, sharper and straighter, wasn't it? And he, you know, the golfing experience really showed up. Denzel can come again. Talented raw fighter, but Felix really did look the part.
Over to you, Chris, for your first topic.
Yes, so obviously the big talk is AJ Fury at the minute. When's it going to happen? Where's it going to happen? We know it's going to happen in Saudi Arabia. And look, there's a lot of reasons why fights shouldn't be happening in Saudi Arabia. That's a whole other debate, human rights and all of that. But if they're going there, they're going there. If they're going there, they're going there for the money. Be honest to the fans. I'm getting a bit bored of both fighters. And Anthony Joshua again said it recently, and Jonathan Ross, that, Wembley would be ideal. It's all about the fans. Tyson Fury calls himself the people's champion, but he has said he doesn't want to fight in Britain ever again in his career. So can we not just be honest to these people? Because these people have paid their hard-earned money to support these guys throughout their careers. They've helped sell out Wembley. They've bought pay-per-views. So they deserve to know what's going on. They're going to Saudi Arabia. They're going there for the money. That's fair enough. But it's not all about the fans. It's not for the fans. It's for their pay packets. And that's fair. The heavyweight fighters, they take a hell of a lot of risk. They provide entertainment for us. They want to get the big money and go to the Middle East for it. Go for it. But it's not for the fans. It's for their purses. It's for everybody involved to get very wealthy off the back of it. And also, they all deserve it. They've built these fighters. They've taken risks. They put money up on the line. But this fight's not for the fans. It's all about the money. And the fans are going to be denied that chance to see it live. If it happens this summer, it's going to be in the middle of a pandemic. There's probably going to be no international travel. So they're going to miss out. They'll get to see the fight on pay-per-view. And if they're happy with that, fair enough. But I think there's a lot of people outside of boxing who still don't believe that it won't happen at Wembley. They can't believe it. It's two British fighters. Why is it not at Wembley? And I think part of that's down to how the fighters are speaking about Wembley all the time. And I think that needs to stop.
Yeah, if the fighters keep saying Wembley, it takes some of that pressure off them, doesn't it? They can say, the promoters have taken it there. I'm worried it sets a precedent that all the big fights end up in Saudi Arabia. Can you imagine if it's a massive success? I've heard that there might be 20,000 people in the arena over there. If it is a huge smash and the pay-per-view sales are through the roof and Saudi gets shown in a good light, a terrible precedent that we could get all fights out there. I know it's been rumours for years, hasn't it? And we always pull out at the last minute. But this could be the one that really kickstarts it. We already had rumours of Pacquiao and Crawford fighting out there in the Middle East. I just wonder if this is a real big success, makes a load of money, then big fights might be taken away from these shows for a long, long time.
I just think if there wasn't a pandemic, there should be. The pandemic gives them the excuse not to have it in Britain, so I accept that. And as you say, Chris, they're going for the money. Be upfront about it, Joshua Fury and all their camps. But if this should be, look, if there was no pandemic, this should have been at Wembley and no other place. First time ever, Britain have one or two, and it'd still be enough money to go around.
Yeah. Now, this weekend, Mick Conlan, for all intents and purposes, it's a final eliminator for a world title, isn't it? He's fighting Ionut Baluta, decent Romanian, down at super bantamweight, the lightest Mick's been since his debut. And I just think this is the time now for Mick. Carl Frampton's retired. There's a big, Chris will know more about this than me, but there's a big space there to fill. And I think Mick is the guy who can do it. We've got James Tennyson, exciting fighter, but he's not got that star quality Mick's got. People like Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker, who we're big fans of, they're very talented, but they're 3 or 4, 5 years behind Mick in terms of development. I just think Mick's bubbled under slightly as a professional. His profile's massive. He's a popular, funny guy, but I don't think he's quite turned it on as a pro yet. And I think it's got to start this weekend. If he wins, he's straight in the mix with Fulton, Lewis Neary, Akhmadliev, who he beat in the World Finals. There's massive fights there, but it's time now for Mick to really stamp his authority as a professional, I think.
Yeah, I think it's kind of maybe that kind of momentum that Frampton had, he hasn't had. He's obviously from a different background, but I think it's also the fact that he's been built in America as well by Top Rank, and that's fair play because they've got a big market over there for him, and it's making his name over there. But I think he obviously had that big fight in Belfast. The big outdoor fight was that a couple of years ago, which showed that he has got that pulling power when they do it. Yeah. So I think when we get the crowds back, and as you say, John, that the Frampton's gone and Belfast and Northern Ireland needs another new sporting hero. He's from the other side of the fence, but maybe he might be able to have that kind of uniting factor as well that Frampton had and bring both sides together, and that they all kind of get behind Mick, and he goes on and wins world titles in front of packed out venues.
I hope he can go on and win world title. You know, I've done a lot of stuff with him. John, I think most probably knows him even better than me. I mean, his family, I know his dad, his brother, they're lovely. A lot. His mum, they're a lovely family. But I wonder, although he's seen glimpses of it, I still haven't seen that standout performance that tells me he's got that X factor to become another Frampton in the ring. We've shown glimpses of it, and you look, he's number 1 in the world with a WB Ho right now. And him and Steve, I mean, I know Fulton's looking at some unification, but you know, they don't mess around with mandatories. If he had to fight Stephen Fulton, that is a really, really hard fight. Frampton will tell you all about him. For me, he's spelling Manchester a couple of years ago. And I know he impressed Jamie Moore and everybody there. I think, you know, as you say, we do need this big performance of him this weekend, because we've seen those flashes of what he can do, but I still haven't seen that one 10 out of 10 performance we're going to say that tells me, you know, another Irish great in the making.
Go on, Steve.
Round 4, Wheel of Sunshine, Murati Mthalane against Sonny Edwards. What a great fight on Friday night. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of Mthalane. I've looked at him. I've seen the knockout against, I think it was Casemiro, and I had a good look at the Muhammad Wasim fight the other day, which was unbelievable. You know, really, really exciting fight. He's won his last 4 fights on the road, or 5 defenses, I think, or title win and 4 fights on the road. Not exactly been murderer's row. And I just wonder if Frank Warren's had a bad run at the time. And I've just got a hunch. Frank, over the years, has been right fight, right time. The knack of getting it right so often. Hatton with Zoo's the one stand out. And I've just got a feeling he's got it right this week. You know, Sonny isn't the strongest, but he's brilliant defensively and busy. And I think that's the sort of thing that could be wrong for a 38-year-old who hasn't boxed for 17 months. His last fight 17 months ago was against a Japanese veteran. And just from, Yagashi, and from reading it, it was 1,200 punches thrown and he was flat to the balls to win it. Edwards has had that, was it 10 rounds against Thomas Asomba since. I've just got a feeling this is right fight, right time for Sonny.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Well, the only thing that the question mark is we haven't seen really Sonny at this level before. We know he's got a lot of talent. We know he's showed some of the skills he's got. But when you do step up in level, sometimes you kind of I'm getting found out is the wrong kind of phrase, but you know what I mean, where it's just you find out that they're not ready for that elite level. It kind of happened to his brother in his first world title shot, and he had to go away and rebuild and come back and that. But as you said, Steve, I think this could be just the kind of the fight at the right time that this guy hasn't fought since December 2019, I think. So that inactivity at his age, he's quite a slow fighter as well. Sonny's quite a fast, skillful back foot fighter. So it may be just the right time for him. But we're going to learn a lot about Sonny Edwards in this fight, and we're going to kind of find out if he's ready or if this is too early for him.
The big question is, can Sonny take the shot? You know, he's been put over a couple of times, but Sonny's fully aware of that. I just get the impression we're going to see a definite answer to is Sonny Edwards good enough? I think he'll either be fantastic and box his head off, as we know he can, or he won't be able to take the power. But I'm with you too. I just think Sonny's got something about him. He carries himself in a certain way as if he's going to perform on the big stage when the pressure's on. I think we'll get the best Sonny Edwards we've seen, and I think he'll do it. You know, I think we'll have a new world champion.
We need it. I think Frank deserves a change of luck after the last couple of weeks. Denzel and Liam Williams.
He does.
Final round, Chris, and it's over to you.
Yeah, so I was watching an interview with Eddie Hearn recently talking about his new broadcast deal. He's refused to confirm or deny he's going to DAZN, but it looks like he's going to take his UK operation to DAZN. And there was just a little worrying point in it, I found. He's obviously talking about the Matchroom media arm, and they're going to do all of the production side of things, and that is great. That's fine. If they're going to run the show, run the event, they can put on some good documentaries. They've done some good ones already with Lawrence Okoli, with Campbell Hatton. No problem there. But a worrying thing I found in it is that he said he will be deciding the broadcast team, and he will be controlling, or Matchroom will control the narrative of the whole fight. And I just think that is wrong. One, because if they're going to DAZN, they've got two people that they use quite regularly, Paul Smith and Alex Arthur, who are two guys who are not afraid to speak their mind. We need critical thinking at these fights. We need honest punditry. We don't want to have pundits who are either all on side with the home fighters or afraid to say something against the away fighter because they've been told they've got to build this certain narrative. And in the lead up as well, you need to give the kind of viewers honest kind of a preview to the fight. An example I'll go back to is before the Dillian White-Pavek in the first fight, all the build-up was like, poor Dillian's never had his world title shot. He's been so hard done by blah, blah, blah. Nobody that week was saying, well, he's turned down this chance. He's turned down $4 million to fight Anthony Joshua. He's had this issue. He's had this issue. It was all just one narrative. You need critical thinking. You need critical questions, and you need to give the audience, people outside the sport, a balanced view. Otherwise, they're going to get fed up. They're just being sold one side of the story, and it's going to lead to. And if DAZN are going to be a serious broadcaster, not just in boxing, they can't allow him to do that. They need to take control of stuff like that.
Yeah, you know what? You wonder. Look, the production they do, Matchroom do it. You know, their YouTube, the documentaries, the Campbell Hatton thing was phenomenal. And you know, a lot of the stuff they've got a big army of media people that work there doing this stuff, and the job they do is fantastic. You can't not knock that. You know, picking talent, all that is quite disturbing and worrying. But I think, you know, I agree with every word you say, but you just got to think, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and see what they churn up when they go to DAZN. But yeah, that's going to be. But it's going down that route of Eddie's plan to become a dominant force like the UFC, where you could have the Matchroom Boxing Council with their own belts, Matchroom Boxing Organisation. You can see that sort of thing long term. Eddie's looking 5-10 years down the line with this, and and it's quite worrying. Do they bring in their own governing body as such, their own, instead of a board of control? Will they bring that sort of thing? Could happen in it. It's just the way he's talking in general is a takeover, and how he wants the sport run. Yeah, picking the talent's worrying, but you know what? There's some people who are likely to be involved. Say if Paul Smith, Alex Arthur are on, they speak their mind, particularly Smigger. But will they be involved? I really hope Paul's involved because he deserves it, and he's very, very good. It's terrible Sky hardly use him now. It's worrying, but I think it's part of this whole UFC plan that Eddie's got to sort of have maybe 600-700 fighters in that Matchroom, or 500, as we say, in Matchroom, and he pick and chooses and matches them as they want. That is the way he's thinking. Whether it can work in boxing, we don't know. Can DAZN work in Britain? We don't know. They don't have a football contract. It's going to be very hard for them to get off the ground. Whatever boxing he has. Yeah, it's disturbing, but I know it is disturbing. But I know, John, I was going to ask on this when you mentioned this topic. The UFC, how critical are their commentators and their build up to fights on certain fighters and what could happen, John? So I don't follow UFC at all.
It's tricky because, it's not tricky at all. They're very honest. One of the commentators on it, comedian Joe Rogan, he's a fanatic. He's not just been bought in by the UFC. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who can really fight. He was a taekwondo champion and all this. And he was watching, give people a potted history of it. He was watching UFC way back in the 90s when it first started. And there was a rival organization called Pride in Japan.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And the people from UFC never fought the people in Pride, apart from the odd showcase appearance. And there was always talk about who's going to win, who's better, Pride or UFC. Eventually, UFC bought Pride and just absorbed it, and now UFC is dominant. The reason I can't see it happening in boxing, there's so many different channels. It's not just as if there's one competitor to Matchroom. You've got PBC, you've got Showtime, you've got BT. That's just 3 off the top of my head. You've got Triller making noise. You can't buy all of these things. So no matter what happens, there are always going to be champions on the opposite side of the road. The only way it can work is if he's got a 5-year, 10-year plan, but a fan's going to stick with it for 5 or 10 years. A fan's going to subscribe to an app, which you've got to get on your television. And when they pay for that app, they know they're only going to get fights which are in-house between that stable. I don't think it'll last. I think if you're going to absorb all the fighters under one umbrella, you've got to buy some other companies up. You've got to buy the talent. You can't just pretend that your little group is the only one that matters when there's something else on Showtime pay-per-view. I don't think people will go for that. I don't know how they're going to get around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you wonder how the broadcaster, going on the broadcast, how it's going to go, particularly in Britain. If you look at Britain now, you've got, okay, let's start. Sky, BT, you might be able to add to this, Channel 5, Box Nation's still going just about, broadcasting stuff.
Dennis Hobson, new one.
Dennis Hobson Fight Zone. I counted 7 the other day. You've got MTK streaming shows.
Black Flash, Steve Wood.
Black Flash, Steve Wood stream shows free of charge. It's unbelievable. I think there's something like 8 or 9 outlets in this country. I think I've left one out there. You just wonder where it's all going to go. And we might also wonder what Sky are going to do with boxing now. But I think Eddie's plan is, domination and forming a UFC type. Now, I don't know whether it's going to work or not. Or maybe I'm edging towards. I'm not as certain as you are, John. But the way he's been operating the last couple of years, I won't put anything past him doing this and pulling it off.
Yeah. I think the problem is with the broadcasting and that if it's so one-sided towards the home fighters, an example, it will end up being like saying if if MUTV, Manchester United TV, got the Premier League rights and they were putting on all the games, and Liverpool fans and Leeds fans and whoever had to tune in, and they were watching Man United TV, and all it was how great Solskjaer is, and no critical questions of Solskjaer if there's a major issue brewing. That'll be the other thing I'm on about, is that if there's a big issue in the fight, but it's negative on the home fighter, on the matchroom fighter, if the broadcaster is appointed by the promoter or to the journalist, the broadcast journalist, the pundits, they're not going to ask those fighters awkward questions. They're not going to put Eddie Hearn on the spot. Whereas a Sky, although they have been in very close ties with them, the same way BT are in close ties with Frank Warren, I still think they have some kind of independency where they can step back and go, hold on a minute. It's certainly Sky Sports News, and go, there's a major issue with this fight. This guy's not going to make the weight. Why is this fight here? Why is this fight happening now? Why is he not fighting this guy over on the other side now? If they're controlling the narrative, they're not going to be allowing questions like that. Why isn't X, Y, and Z fighting the guy on the other side? Or why isn't he going to America to fight him? If they only want to keep it in, they want to keep it all in-house, those kind of questions. I think that's where you will lose fans, because fans will tune in expecting like an evenly kind of debate. They'll expect tough questions if there's a major issue. And if they're not getting that, I think they'll tune off, even if they manage to get onto the zone.
Yeah, the media side of it is something I worry about. You know, at that point you made more than the punditry side. I mean, let's give it the benefit of the doubt for now and see what happens and jump on if it goes on. The media side, sure. But just wondering, taking what you said just a bit forward there, Chris, do you think this with Matchroom at DAZN, it could end up like the football where, you know, Eddie wants to have, you know, run the narrative, where they totally manage who speaks to these fighters like you do with football? Like, you know, how hard it is speaking to a footballer one-to-one now, unless you're going to stick Adidas on the bottom and you're invited by a PR.
I hope not. Like, there obviously is that fear, and there's obviously, when they get to a superstar status like an Anthony Joshua, it's very hard to get interviews with them. But I hope it doesn't happen at a lower level. I hope it's still quite open, because although new media is the thing, and I understand what Eddie's on about, where it's social media drives so much, and Instagram and Twitter and all of that, I get that. But you still have to remember the old school media. And if these guys are not, and I'm not talking about just being newspapers here, I'm on about BBC Radio, I'm on about TalkSport, I'm on about ITV, local news, stuff like that, where people still get a massive audiences that people are watching, and will help them it'll help build them. Like, Anthony Joshua wasn't just doing GQ magazine and stuff like that when he was starting out as a pro. He was speaking to everybody, because they have to build them. And I think that's what they have to remember. The worrying thing is they've got their own media arm now. They can do their own stuff. They can put out their own stuff on YouTube. They can get plenty of publicity through that. But I think they've got to remember that kind of, you've got a wider audience that aren't tuned into the kind of matchroom thing. But my fear is that, POs get involved, and you can't get access unless you're going to give us credit for something, for this and that.
Newspapers. Sorry, John.
The good thing from DAZN so far is when DAZN have done the broadcast, they have invited fighters from other channels on. They've done interviews with Prograis and Crawford at Spence. They've not ignored it and pretended it doesn't exist, like PBC do, where they have the PBC rankings. DAZN have shown that they're quite open to it. Maybe DAZN know that the only fights that are going to attract attention are mega fights.
Look, I'm excited about DAZN, because I think, although I do have fears about boxing going off Sky, out of sight, out of mind, and all of that kind of thing to the casual audience, I still think if somebody's just putting their full faith in the sport and pushing, it will be a good thing. And as John says, they've shown in America. I'm not a massive fan of the broadcast team over there, but they have shown they will get fighters in. They will talk on the broadcast about other fighters, which is something that doesn't happen sometimes in the UK. So they have shown good signs. I'm just worried that Eddie Hearn will take that away from them, from doing that. I don't think they should have let him. I think they should push for their kind of own editorial decisions on stuff.
Yeah, and you know, the one that stood out to me, I think I mentioned on the pod around Christmas, was the Callum Smith-Canelo fight. They gave Terence Crawford and Errol Spence that night 5-6 minutes of airtime each. Two fighters who there's at that time and still at the moment, little chance of them fighting on the zone. But going back to what you said, let's cut the media. What I think Eddie, I hope he doesn't lose sight of, and I don't think he will, especially with pay-per-view and selling subscriptions, which he's got to do at the zone. Print media still drives the agenda. It's still what radio stations talk about. Now, Coogan, IFL, Boxing Social, don't take away the job they're doing. They're getting big hits, 30, 40,000 hits for, British title challenges. Phenomenal. But a lot of the people that are watching IFL, Boxing Social, Seconds Out, they've already got them in. They're already subscribers. You do need the outside media that don't, the general sports media, mainstream, papers, 5 Live, Talk Sport, to set agendas and bring in crowds that aren't boxing fans. You do still need them, even though papers aren't selling what they were and don't have the budget to go and cover stories and go and, travel abroad as much as they used to covering big events.
No, exactly. And it's kind of like the newspaper, even the newspaper websites have got a bigger kind of reach into, I'm not talking even numbers, I'm just talking about into different markets. As you say, the guys who run some great YouTube channels get some massive figures, but they're already speaking to the boxing fans. The newspapers, the radio, the local TV, the national TV, get the other people who are just interested in. A lot of those are like my kind of mates who are into football, big time, like the big time boxing. They won't be watching Joseph Parker, Derek Chisora. They won't have watched Felix Cash, Denzel Bentley. But when Anthony Joshua rolls round, but when there's another big fight after that, they'll be into that. And that's why you need that coverage and get them interested. They don't tune into the YouTube channels that cover boxing. It's not on their radar, but they do read the Daily Mail. They do read the Daily Star. They do read the Daily Mirror. They do listen to TalkSport and 5 Live. So it gets in the more general kind of audience.
John, we got to finish. You have a good chat for a couple minutes. Sorry.
Do they subscribe to DAZN if there's no football package? And does boxing then disappear?
And that's it. That's a great point. And as someone who works in television said to me the other day, we were discussing it, and no one was knocking DAZN. The guy was, like us to have praising what Matchroom were doing there. The Matchroom media is a great idea to do all the production. But would the Premier League, now I'm going off topic here, consider giving DAZN a decent football package? When I mean Sunday football, if they don't have some sort of TV for people who don't stream everything. Like Amazon get a small contract where they get a little bit, but you can't see a major contract going to anyone outside Sky or BT at the moment because of that. In Italy, I think DAZN offered more than Sky Italia for the next round of Serie A games. And I don't know what the upshot was in the end. They were meeting. They're considering still giving the deal to Sky Italia because of the wider audience they bring in.
Because you will lose money, although you might earn more money in the rights fee, you'll lose money in sponsorship and stuff like that, because if you're not giving the sponsors as many eyes on their product, they're going to withdraw. So that's what they'll have to balance. I suppose that might be similar in boxing. I know sponsorship's not much talked about, but will William Hill, will Betfred, will 32 Red, would they want to be on the canvas if there is a lot smaller audience for them? Is it worth the same money for them? How much does that mean in boxing? I don't really know the details. So, but in football, sponsorship is a huge, huge thing. Shirt sponsorship, sleeve sponsorship, stuff like that is massive, massive money. And if their product is being tucked away somewhere else that's not getting, I think a big thing for DAZN, and I'm going into technicalities here, is getting on the Skybox like Amazon has managed to do.
Yeah.
If it's on there, it's more accessible. Okay, you can get it on your TV if you know how to do
Apple
it,
TV,
but you have to go through your apps and all of that. And people like my and John's age, maybe good at people like your age, Steve, old fogies.
Hey, I watch DAZN. I have an Apple TV, and I get it. So don't start that. We've got 2 minutes, and we better let John finish. We've got 2 minutes because VIP are too mean to pay a subscription for us to go longer. Go on, John. You better finish us off, John, because you haven't got a word in on this.
No, I think we've pretty much covered it all, haven't we? We've gone way over the end there. There's positives.
A long round, that one.
My big worry is that boxing is just seen by far, far fewer people, and the people that do watch it are the hardcore who know what they're watching. They know they're being lied to, and it has a negative effect. If we look on the positive side, the actual presentation and everything's going to be fantastic. If we can tie it in with a football package, I think we could all be winners. But we've got no idea, have we?
Yeah, we've got less than a minute. And look, we're not being kicking DAZN here. Let's just all hope it works and it's something. We're on here in a year's time saying, how fantastic is it with all this boxing, all the production, the talent, the commentary, everything is brilliant. Chris,
Definitely.
Thanks very much for coming on again. You go and enjoy your week in the bubble, mate, and behave yourself in Eddie's bubble, mate.
I will do. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks a lot, John.
No worries.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.